Okay, we started the call?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Terry.
Well, hey, it's Murphy's Law Day. Hey, everybody, it's April 2nd, and it's Terry Murphy and Mike White. And we're on today. We had a little technical problem, but with a name like Murphy, I'm pretty used to that, aren't you, Mike?
Yeah, we get used to that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, today we're really excited to be doing how to use a forever home strategy to make more sales and pump up those.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey, Mike, it's Terry Murphy, and we are finally up and at 'em. I'm sorry we had a little technical difficulty this morning, but it looks like we've gotten that all straightened out. Are you up there all right?
Yeah, Mom.
And I understand we've got some people up there as well. I welcome you from wherever you are, and we're excited to be doing this program because right now I'm being a coach myself. I know that realtors are unhappy about not having enough listings. So today our program is about how to use a forever home strategy to make more sales and pump up those profits right now. Hey, and Mike, you know that you and I have been doing this forever. When did we do Golden Partnerships? Do you recall?
I think that goes back to the late 90s, believe it or not.
Come on, we were younger then, right?
Oh, yeah, a lot.
Yeah, well, I remember those days. But here's the good news. We are finally gotten through some of that shadow inventory. And one of the most important parts about that is that we need sellers who want to sell and buyers who want to buy because there's not that many listings. Why don't you go through some of those statistics, Mike, that we know about?
Sure thing, Terry. One of the things that I wanted to share with everybody is that 43% of all current homeowners right now would benefit from either refinancing or selling their current homes. 43% of those people. In fact, another surprise that we may go out there that you may not know is 22% of all people who are currently renting are actually in a position to buy a house today, and they would have a payment that would either be equal to or less than what they're currently paying in rent after we adjust the tax implications of home ownership. Now, those are two pretty powerful facts. But now we combine them with now the urgency that says home inventories are now 30% lower than they were a year ago. That becomes a really scary thing, especially when you couple it with the fact that foot traffic for new people coming into the market looking to buy homes is up over 40% over last year. And those two things, when they're brought together, is now creating this pressure on the market where mortgage people have a whole bunch of pre-approved buyers and disappearing as fast as they come on. In fact, the National Association of Realtors just came up with a new term called flash listing, a listing that comes on the market and is gone in less than 24 hours. So it's an amazing thing right now when you look at this, at just the percentages of what's going on here, is we've got a large percentage of people who are currently in homes that would benefit from either moving or refinancing. There's a large number of people, a percentage of people, up 40% over last year who are now looking. And in probably the shortest period of time that we can look at, we've gone from a buyer's market to a seller's market. And the problem that we're all facing is working on those listings. And so what we've done together here is try to come up with a plan to understand that this represents a huge opportunity. And so
the other thing that I think we've got to add here is we've got record low interest rates. I mean, that's insane. So we've got a buyer demand. We've got people that don't understand that interest rate is going to impact them on either end, whether they sell or buy. And most people aren't aware of what they can buy. I mean, what their purchase power is.
Yeah, it's incredible to think that, you and I kid around a lot about going back to the days of high interest rates and what they represent. And I saw an article today, I just wanted to pull this off, that in 1981, if somebody was buying a $300,000 home in 1981, they'd be looking at a 30-year fixed rate at 18.45%. And the principal and interest payment alone on that house back in 1981 would have been $4,631. That's a scary number. When you flip it to today, that same $300,000 loan at 3.5% would be about $1,350 a month. Now, that's looking back more than 30 years and looking at the opportunities, and there's one thing I know, Terry, that in 1981, there were still people listing and selling and buying houses.
I was doing about 100 a year, and the reason is because people still have to have houses. We need to get out of that mindset that interest rates are driving whether or not people can be in a house. They can't sleep in their cars, right?
Absolutely.
Well, Mike, let's go into one other issue, and that is things have changed also about credit. Can you tell us about that? Because I know you specialize in that.
Well, one of the surprising things that we're seeing is, despite all the conversations with the mortgage meltdown and the housing meltdown and all the foreclosures and, you know, all the short sales, believe it or not, credit scores are actually going up. The average credit score in the USA right now is 703. Now, without any special treatment or without having to pay, you know, ridiculous rates, if your credit score is just over 640, you can buy very comfortably. You don't have to look for a special program. You know, you're not limited to the number of lenders that will offer you financing below that rate. The reality of it is if you're over 640, you can buy quite easily. And remember, the average customer is at 703. Now, the key here is, with home sales, the resales, they're growing right now at a tremendous pace. And what that's helping us do is not only increase the attractiveness for people to sell their houses, it's helping raise the price on homes. And that is making it more attractive for people who didn't think that they could get out of their houses, are now in a position to be able to sell their house and go buy another one.
Well, what's important about that, too, though, is that this is a window, and I don't know because people hadn't suffered the high change of interest rates for several years. But, Michael, we know that it's important for people to understand this window can't stay forever. If interest rates are low and prices are low, that's a very small, distinct window. And so that changes the whole thing, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, it's amazing when you look at this whole thing, whether you're buying and selling. You know, there's a lot of people, I hear, you know, the realtors say that there's still people out there that are making, you know, ridiculously low offers on housing. They don't understand that the prices are actually going up. They still think that they're going to look at a listing price and offer 10 or 20 or 30% below that and be able to obtain that house. And what I try to explain to my mortgage professionals is to make sure that that buyer understands it's not so much the home price that becomes the scary thing here. It's just a simple move of 0.25% in interest rates can dramatically affect not only the monthly payment, but the amount of money that that person qualifies to borrow, and can represent tens of thousands of dollars over the life of financing that property. So in many cases right now, buyers and sellers are in a unique position. The sellers are sitting there saying, well, as prices are going up, I want to wait to get the most I can for my house. And the sad part about that is most of those people are going to sell their house and buy a more expensive one, and they're not taking into consideration that the price on the house that they're looking to buy is going up as well.
Yeah, well, this is declining listing inventory. So we know that, you know, there are still 30% left on the marketplace, but you've got to understand that sellers don't know that this is the time for them to sell. They need to be sold. They need to understand the leadership. So we know that buyers want to buy and sellers need to sell, but they don't understand the dynamic of that. They don't understand that they have buying power, even if they're not getting that extra 10 or 15,000 they thought their home was worth at one time. And I know that you've done some numbers on that.
Well, it really comes down to, you know, understanding, and we've tried to sit down there and explain to people in no uncertain terms. If you're looking in every marketplace, no matter what you do, there's going to be a price. And for the person who sits there selling their house, and we've looked at sellers and had the conversation with the seller about sometimes negotiating that last $5,000 in price, you've got pretty much two options. When you realize what that $5,000 represents, either $35 or $40 a month if you wanted to borrow the money on that $35,000 or $40,000, you know, on that $5,000, that $35 to $40 a month in payment. But how does that affect the next house again that you're buying? when you go and you know what you're selling for, you know what you can buy at. And the combination here is many people don't realize that at the low interest rates they're getting right now, many times they're sitting in a house, they may have $100,000 or $200,000 mortgage on their present home, and going to buy that bigger house, they'd be taking a bigger mortgage, and yet their monthly payments would be going down. Because if you look at somebody as simple as they've got a house, and they bought the house in 2008, and maybe they're in at 5.25% interest on their loan. Well, if they're on a fixed rate loan, their payments haven't come down. Their payments have remained, that principal and interest payment has remained steady. Well, now, with interest rates in the 3s, they can borrow a considerable more amount of money at the same or lower payment. And that's what I'm saying when we talk about this, is you could conceivably sell your house and buy a bigger and better house for less money than you're paying today.
And that's why it's important for us to be on this call today, because the people who are smart enough to sign up understand that this is maybe the need, but they don't know what that next step is, Michael. So one of the things that we've gotten together to do is help you to create an easy 3-step program so you know what to say, how to say it, and where to say it, so that you can help more people get into their what we call, or what you call, their forever home. So let's just talk about that for a second. We've got you and I both know that you've got to have the right people on the team, and I'll let you go into that.
Well, quite simply, we're trying to get, and the whole purpose of this call is the fact that we want to get the realtors and the mortgage people working together and having tools that they can use to have these conversations. If the mortgage professional can work with the realtor and supply them with the information, then they have a much better conversation with the person who may not even be thinking about buying a home. So the first thing that we talk about here is selecting, on the mortgage professional side, a realtor, and on the realtor side, a loan originator. Find your partner, because without finding a partner, this is much easier done together than it is alone. The balance between the emotion of the house and the stark reality of financing the house comes into play when it's being handled by two different professionals. So when we get that realtor loan originator team together, then the next step is to sit there and find a property, and this is where the realtor comes in. Find a property in your area that has sold in a very short period of time, whether it's sold in a few days or whether it's sold with multiple offers. Those are the types of properties that you want to find that have just recently sold, because that's going to give you a great indication of what people are buying. If there were multiple offers on that property, then we're set up to know that that's a neighborhood that is in demand, and that when we have that comparable, when we can look at that house and say, this house just down the block just sold for this amount of money, and it was a competitive bid situation, there were 3 or 4 offers on that property, it starts a whole new channel of thinking. It looks to the people in the area, other houses that you'd like to list and sell, to be able to share with them, look at this demand. This house on your block that you can see just sold to these people for this amount of money, and oh, by the way, there were 3 or 4 other offers that weren't accepted. Those people are still looking for houses.
Yeah, and let's talk about this for a second. If you're an agent listening to this, I firmly believe that when you have a loan originator partner that gets it, they will help you help your client or customer into the transaction process. First of all, just like you don't marry anybody or you just don't hang with anybody, you have to do a significant interview process, and we actually have the questions to how to interview a loan originator and or realtor, because on either side, we know the pain, don't we, Michael?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that you've got to find the right person. And that means that somebody who's willing to sit down with your seller and say, look, right now you're paying 5 3/4 interest. You could be paying 3. Let's show you the differentiator. To put in a bathroom, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars. To re-roof, X amount of dollars. See where I'm going? And that's the important part of the program, is you find someone who can help you with the numbers. Because if you're a realtor, you should not be doing the numbers. There are too many changes in the mortgage industry, in my opinion. There's too many nuances. Find one of the best professionals you can work with. And then you're right. Then you find that property. And the third part is pretty easy, Michael. Why don't you go into it right now?
Well, one of the things that I've always shared with people, and what I've done back in my practice as a loan originator, and what I share with my coaching clients, is something that most realtors that have been around a little bit have always done.
Right.
You know, my sister was in real estate, you know, for many years, and when I first got into the mortgage business, you know, she was sharing with me some of the tried and true methods that realtors used when they listed and sold properties to get in front of other opportunities. And one of those things that has always stuck with me, and something that I've always taught my mortgage people to do, was to work with their realtor to go to the homes that surround the property that has just sold. Knock on the doors and share the following information with the people. Because if we don't tell them that the house down the block just sold for X number of dollars and it was a multiple offer situation,
They won't know.
they're not going to know this.
Yeah, but let me just, if I was listening to you, I'd go, oh, wait a minute, buddy, you don't live in Memphis. You know, you don't live in Detroit. Here's my thinking. If door knocking is not appropriate where you are, there's restrictions or whatever, you still need to get that word out. Direct mail that is highly personalized, nobody gets real notes anymore. So if you can't knock a door, which you could do with your loan originator, the two of you together, there are other ways. So I don't want you to tune out while you're doing that, because at the end of the day, people need to know. And what they need to know is that you are a trusted advisor, that you're a resource, and you're saying to them, look, this is your neighborhood, and Mr. and Mrs. X over here just sold their property for X amount of dollars, plus there were 3 buyers that wanted to be in your neighborhood. And that is a program that you and I have been teaching forever and ever and ever. But I think that if you were on this call, Michael, you would want the actual words that you would use.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. You know, simple is often the best way to go. Just a simple statement. You can put it on a postcard, or you can put it on a flyer. And you say to yourself, did you know the house at 123 Main Street just sold in 5 days or 10 days? Or did you know that the house sold for this amount of money, or had this number of offers made on it, so that there are people that are still looking to buy a house in this neighborhood that weren't able to secure that particular property. And you just say to them, I wanted to ask you, do you think home prices and interest rates on mortgages are likely going to go up or go down in the next few years? Because that's what leads us to this whole conversation.
Well, not, go ahead.
No, it leads us to the whole conversation about not just, you know, one of the things I disagree about, like with just listed cards. I know realtors have used this forever, but you send out a just listed card, and all it just says is the house was just listed or just sold.
It doesn't tell you anything.
It doesn't trigger anything.
There's no engagement, and I am totally in favor of combining, Michael, both online and offline, traditional, what I call traditional marketing. So if you were going to send a just listed, don't bother to just say the house at 123 Main Street was listed for, you know, $210,000. Tell them more. Okay, our home prices are going up, mortgage interest rates are going up, you know, and then ask the question so that they have to go somewhere to engage, so that you hear from them. Because just sending them information is sort of like sending piano sales. If you don't want a piano, you're not paying attention. So what we want to do is engage them. So you said, do you think home prices and interest rates on mortgages are going to go up or down? Well, hello, what do you think?
I mean, for the most part, you know, we already know, and all the information that's coming out, that home prices are off the bottom, and in some areas considerably. And we all know the interest rates, you know, the people who are hanging out and hoping for, you know, 2 3/4 on a 30-year fixed are disappointed. We're still in the 3s, and that's a wonderful thing. But if there's going to be pressure, it's going to be pressure to go upward, certainly not any lower. And so, again, these are huge advantages to somebody when you look at how small the prices can be for somebody to go, because there's one key step here, and it is based upon what we're talking about, based on this information, are you currently living in your forever home?
Now that's a soundbite. I really like that, and that's brilliant, Michael.
Now, we say that because you can't just say listed, or you just can't say sold, and you just don't want to say move. It doesn't resonate as much as getting them to think. Am I living in my forever home? And there's only really 2 answers when you ask that question. Okay? If the answer is yes, you say, great, we are absolutely thrilled that you're in your forever home. Let's make that house cost you as little money as possible, because chances are you're in a position to refinance to a lower rate and make the carrying cost of your house cheaper. So that is one thing that we can do to that person. Now, the other side to that coin is, what if the answer is no? You know, I had this conversation with one of my loan officers who he was knocking on doors with his realtor, and they moved into a neighborhood, and he was speaking to a couple, and they said they had bought the house 6 years earlier, and they had 2 small kids. Well, now those kids have grown, and they said the highest traffic area in their entire city is the 3 square feet in front of their 1 bathroom at 7 o'clock in the morning when people got to go to school. And so, you know, part of that thing is if the answer is no, it's what's holding you back. What's stopping you from making the move to that forever home while prices are low and interest rates are low? What could possibly stop you from moving on? And they will have a variety of challenges. It may be, they think it may be a credit issue. They think they don't have enough equity in their house. They think they may not be able to afford the next home. They may not know what the next home looks like. And this is one of the keys. This is where the realtor becomes so critical to this, because that realtor, when you're having this conversation, is show them what that house would look like. If you're in a neighborhood with a 3-bedroom, 1-bath homes, or 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes, and you know, every realtor knows what it's likely the person selling this home is moving up to buy this next house, either a 4-3 or a 5-3 in another part of town or with a pool or something. The power of having that information available, saying, you could buy this home. Here's a logical trade-up home for you. This is something we think your forever home might look like. And then have your loan officer do the math. Because have the math and say, you know, if you bought this house, the monthly payment would be this. Quite frequently, it's less or about the same as what they're currently paying. That's not selling anybody. That's just sharing information.
Well, that's leadership. And again, this is where that connection between the realtor and the loan originator is critical. Because if the realtor is on it, that person has maybe, let's just say they were living in Green Tree and now they want to live in, you know, a different development. So you go to that other development and you actually take some video. And you say to them, these are the kinds of houses that I've heard you say to me that are interesting to you. So if the answer is no, you know for a fact, Michael, that most people always are talking about their next house. So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your marketing tips?
Well, the first thing you have to start out with is feeling about the market and understand that over the last 5 or 6 years, there has been obviously there's been challenges in the real estate market, and the normal number of people who would have moved in the natural course of events have not done so. And so there is this pent-up demand of people who want an extra bedroom, wanted an extra bathroom, wanted to move, and didn't know they could. The marketing here comes back to is the possibilities, okay? The possibilities on how we go, and what do we do, and what would the price be. And when you have that worked out, then it's a matter of going with your realtor again. If it's an area where you're comfortable going and knocking on doors, if it's a gated community and you can't get in, or it's a neighborhood that you're not comfortable with, and by the way, you never do this alone. You always do it with somebody. Sometimes I have whole caravans of people going out and canvass neighborhoods. But the point is here is we got to go out and share the message. And how do we share the message? It's the 10-10-20. Now, that's what that's what it used to be called, and anybody who's been in real estate, more than 20 years would recognize that term. I like to glorify it and call help us pick your new neighbor, but we'll leave it at that. 10-10-20 is an old formula that my sister taught me, and said when realtors list the property for sale, before they went back to the office with that listing, they were instructed to go 10 houses to the left, 10 houses to the right, and the 20 houses across the street, and knock on the doors and tell the people who live there that they just listed the home, and did they know anybody who was interested in possibly buying it. Well, that may or may not resonate as much as I use the phrase, help us pick your new neighbor. And here's how this looks. Very simple. The house at 123 Main Street is for sale. That means that you have the opportunity to help us pick your new neighbor. Let your friends, relatives, and coworkers know. And here's the information about this property. It changes the mindset from somebody tells me a house was just listed or somebody just tells me a house that just sold. What does that mean to me? If I'm not in the moment of thinking about buying or selling, that doesn't resonate. But let's face it, every one of us has that one neighbor that drives us crazy. And if you're on this call and you don't have that neighbor that drives you crazy, then guess what you are? You're the one driving everybody else nuts.
Yeah.
But the point here is, help us pick your new neighbor is a different way of focusing their attention. It gets them engaged. A, they may be able to find you a buyer. But on the B side of this coin is it gets them thinking about the information of that house being sold. So when they start thinking about buying and selling, even if it's just to help you along, and again, most people will help you if it doesn't cost them anything, they already start the wheels in motion about thinking about possibly selling their house.
Well, Michael, tell us the statistics that you have found with your coaching clients of what happens when there is that new listing and what happens in the neighborhood.
Well, the good news here is over the course of doing this for years, and we just talking about help us pick your new neighbor, up until this year, if you knocked on 40 doors, statistically what would happen is you would find 11 people home. And you'd have the conversation about help us pick your new neighbor, and out of those 11 people, you would find 2/3 of a transaction that would result from that. In other words, from 11 people that you would meet and talk to, they would have a friend or a relative or a coworker that would be interested in possibly seeing that house and commit to using you to buy it. Or if they didn't, would engage the realtor in finding out more information about their own circumstance about possibly listing and sell their house. Now, that was up until this year. What we've been finding since last December is that the numbers are skewed enormously. The response rate is almost 40%. In other words, we had one, and I just had it last week, knocked on 28 doors, spoke to 7 people. 3 of the people that they spoke to were interested in more information about selling their house. It's phenomenal when you engage people in the conversations and get them to start thinking. You'd be amazed how the numbers look.
And I got to mention here, because you know that I'm pretty big proponent of both online and traditional marketing. And today, with as easy as it is to get a digital photo of that neighbor's house, remember, this has got to be geared. If your largest percentage, according to NAR, of buyer pool is Gen X and Gen Y, they are perfectly comfortable with both electronic and online. So let's just say that you have the 10, 10, 20, and you sent out 40 of the postcards that said, help us pick your new neighbor, if you couldn't knock the door. And or if you did, you left this. But if you had a digital it's either ego, which I call is what you want to say, or engagement, what they want to hear. And if Gen X and Gen Y are part of the matrix of who your target market is, you need to understand it's all about them. So they're interested in having the power to help choose a new neighbor. So this is a very engaging strategy, Mike. And even though it might not be really something that's just come up, it's been enduring. It's one of those principle-driven activities that we know work, and clearly it's been working for your people.
Well, the old expression, you know, sometimes the things that work best are the things that have always worked. And just sometimes, you know, if it's new and it's modern and it's up to date, doesn't necessarily mean it's any better. The mousetrap the spring-loaded mousetrap has worked pretty effectively for a long time. And what my people are seeing is really what we have to overcome, both as realtors and mortgage people, is overcome disinformation. Because the challenge is people just don't know what's available to them and what they can do. They've been hit with the media so long about saying you can't sell a house, there's nobody wants to buy, nobody can get any money. The misinformation out there is enormous. And what we're finding, case by case is if you go out and just share information, and if you just go out and share what is possible, people will engage, and they engage in a big way.
Well, and let's talk about that engagement strategy, Michael, because this is clearly an engagement strategy for both a buyer and or a seller. But let's just say that you've got a seller. Let me explain something to you. If you're an agent and or a loan originator, the seller has heard it all. And if you understand that the average age of a realtor is not the average age of the biggest pool of sellers, you'll understand there's a slight disconnect. One of the issues that we need to understand is that moving is really traumatic. I mean, you've got to pack up all your stuff. You've got to make up decisions. You're going to be upsetting that norm, which, believe me, is a problem. But if this is the best time, and it truly is for that client or customer, and you've already gone through this is why it makes good sense for you to get into your forever home right now. This is why you will spend less money, and in 2 to 3 years from now, this house is going to be worth more than this one with one bathroom. You need to have a premium marketing plan. And I believe that differentiation is the biggest issue. Now, one of the main activities that I do with my coaching clients, Michael, is I make sure that if they do have an opportunity to sit with a seller, that they create a real differentiator in that marketplace. And that means that they set up and due diligence way before the appointment. And I call it my pre-appointment package. And I've used this forever because I listed and sold at least 100 homes a year for over 20-some years. And part of the reason was I was selfish. I did not want to spend my day doing all of this work only to find out that they were going to list with, Aunt Lily. So I wanted to create a differentiation. I wanted to set that bar so high that the other agent's not going to look as prepared or as professional as me. Now, a lot of people, if you check out the top producers in this country, because I belong to the top 5 elite, you will find out that they, in fact, use a pre-appointment package. They may deliver it both electronically and in person, but when you get a package that you have to sign for, that's going to get your attention. Again, depends on the demographic of the age group you're working with. In this case, I'm just going to be generic. We're just going to go with everybody. Now, the first thing, there's a letter in there that says, we're delighted that you're considering Terry Murphy of ABC Real Estate Company to professionally market your home. Let me introduce myself. My name's Mike White, and I'm with ABC Mortgage Company. And that's an integral part of our team. As an active member, we play an aggressive role in the marketing of your property. Now, very few agents understand the team concept between their loan originator and their real estate services. Now, this letter, Mike, I do have in my pre-appointment package, and the reason I use this is because I want to set that seller up for a list of future issues or for engagements that are going to come up. One is they're going to get a phone call from my manager. My manager is going to say, congratulations for considering having Terry Murphy of our ABC Real Estate Company to help you market your home. Just want you to know that you just don't get Terry. The whole company is behind getting your property sold. Because believe it or not, being on the market is really tough for almost anyone, whether they've got kids or dogs or just a husband. It makes sense that it's going to interrupt their life. Secondly, they're going to get a call from the loan originator saying, by the way, you've made a good choice. We're part of your team. We're happy to help. And then third, they're going to get a call from the agent's office to confirm the appointment. Now, a lot of agents say, well, that sounds like harassment. I think it sounds like differentiation. Because when you get that much of a setup to get a transaction, you're going to see that is such a differentiator in the selling market that it's really something that is often used. The second thing is I like to use a receipt, and that means that they have to sign for it. Michael, it was a completely selfish reason I did this, but when you go on 20 to 25 listing appointments a month, you've got to know that they got that package, because inside that package is that equity sheet that we would review with the loan originator. We would review how things are done today, because if you haven't listed or sold a house in the last, they say, 36 months, things have changed. So we want to make them familiar with everything, and very often they don't really read it until the last minute. Now, this should not look like War and Peace, but it should position you as the celebrity authority. In other words, you're the star of that particular area because you, A, are an expert on what's going on. You've been proactive about showing them what they need to do and how they need to do it. And third, you're demonstrating the power of that team. And the idea is to get them into that forever home. So, Michael, do you have any comments about that? Because I know that you and I have worked on this for a while.
Well, the reality with this is it's contact. It's not that you're the same as everybody. This whole point is when you talk about differentiation, I talk about sharing information. The whole point is the fact that you've got to get the facts of the market out onto the table and show people the path where they can go to have an outcome that benefits them and their family. And when you go out there and you have a pre-listing package, I have loan officers all the time. They'd love to get the listings of information from the realtor. Why? Because loan officers know that those listings are going to get sold, and those people are probably going to buy other houses. So if I get in the door first as part of your team, there's a chance I could get that loan. So being supportive of you trying to get that listing is a natural part of the process. And if you don't have a plan on how the realtor and the mortgage professional work together in concert so that you're both not doing the same thing, you're sharing some responsibilities, you can get a lot more done working together as a team than you ever can doing it by yourself.
Not only that, it's a lot less expensive both from a time and effort standpoint, and it really is a tremendous differentiator. And we're going to give you a solution on how to do this. But, Mike, I just want to review with everybody that's still with us, is that if there's power in this math, and we know that people really respond to value. They're looking for that value proposition. And we know that the differentiation is a big part of how people interpret value. Most people aren't listing or selling because they just don't know they're supposed to be right now, and because they've been beat up so long about how bad the market is. So when you're a financial expert or when you see an article, they're not telling you the truth. We are showing you that credit has changed, that interest rates are low, that there's a demand for product, and we haven't even gone into the government loans and what's available there, that if you have a lower monthly payment, how would that profoundly change your life? I mean, if people could even have an extra $200 to $300 or $400 a month. And what about your depreciation factors? We didn't even go into that, did we, Michael?
No, I mean, you look at the fact that now you get to reset the clock on the new house. You have a new sales price, you have a new loan amount. You've got a longer time to use that tax deductibility in making that move up. And for many people, they worry about whether they can or they can't make that move. And just remember that this becomes part of an overall plan. It's not necessarily, can I get enough money out of the sale of my house to buy the next one, because that you don't necessarily need, again, to put 20% down on that next house. Sometimes, even if you break even getting out of that house and move to the next one by using either some savings or money from a 401k plan or something along those lines to get into that next larger home, your monthly obligations can go down, and it frees up the cash to repay your 401k plan. And now you're growing your 401k and the equity position and the value of your home at the same time.
Well, Mike, you did a great job on writing a paper on the first-time homebuyer seller strategy. And if you deal with first-time homebuyers, they don't know anything. So, we talked about in this call before we go into some of our solutions, is you've got to find a realtor partner. And you got to find those neighborhoods that contain the kinds of properties where either people are going to trade up, because at the end of the day, the bottom has to move for the top to move. So those starter homes have got to be bought. And if you're a renter right now, you're probably paying some pretty high rent, because landlords are enjoying a big percentage of the market that is renting because they couldn't buy due to credit information and that kind of thing. But unlike realtors and loan originators, Mike, those people don't keep on track of what's going on, what the changes are.
Yeah, and that's why I say it's shocking to most people to find out that, we already know right off the bat that 22% of the people who are renting right now could buy a house today.
Yeah.
And that is almost a staggering fact that almost shocks people when you have that conversation, that they can't believe that in many cases that a house in their neighborhood is even less money than the apartment that they've been renting.
So, I mean, there are listings out there. So if you're saying, well, I don't know, in my particular concentrated area or farm, get out there and at least help somebody who does first-time buyers get into a property, determine what it is, bring in your loan originator, do some counseling. But let's talk about how we can help the people on the call, Mike, about making money while they eat lunch. What do you mean by that?
Well, we're setting up this series of phone calls like we have today. Once a month, Terry and I are going to be doing this process called the Lunch and Learns. And for any of the existing coaching clients, for myself or for Terry, this call is going to be absolutely free. It's going to be part of the service that you're paying for. But for those of you who have realtors who aren't coaching, or you know real estate offices that would like this information, having a place where they can go once a month to listen to the calls and share information that they can get, again, for an entire real estate office, for $999 a year, we'll invite that office to partake in these calls and share in the possibilities of what's out there. Now, again, our full-price clients have access for free. So Terry's coaching clients and my coaching clients, this will be available. They also, as part of this service, they're going to have access to the downloadable reports and ebooks, the ones both that I have written and the ones that Terry has written, because we want to be able to share information and show you the scripts and the dialogues and the pieces of the puzzle. We don't want you to have to reinvent the wheel. We want you to be able to use the tools right away. And understanding, for those of you who are on this call, if you're a mortgage professional who was invited by your realtor, or you're a realtor that was invited by your mortgage professional, understand that one-on-one coaching is available both from Terry and myself, and we have a number of different plans to help make that happen.
Yeah, here's the thing. I have a coach, and the reason I have a coach is because I can't see beyond my skill. I can't see beyond my my perspective. And part of what I found when I was listing and selling 100 homes a year, Michael, was that when somebody showed me a way to do something differently, but I had to have the nuts and bolts. I didn't want to have to go out and try to, buy a bus. I wanted the turnkey. And today people want what they want, when they want it, and fast. And with your listing, with your URL, which we know is coaching. Oh, I'm sorry. I know I had to. Yeah, improve my tomorrow coaching. I just had a glitch in my. I just freaked out because I was a little worried about my internet connection here. But the idea is that is information that is available to you 24/7. As a realtor, you don't think about having a difficult client until you get one, or somebody who says my price is too high. Or somebody who says, well, I want to list my house for more money for the first 30 days. You don't have those on-demand, scripts and whatever, and that's what we're here to help you with when you get stuck. So for that money, you get an assessment call, you get one 30-minute accountability session call per month, and that includes a complimentary pre-listing CD. Now, you saw some of it. We usually sell those CDs. Those are customizable for $149. They have scripts. They have the tax letter for the January stuff. They have a lot of things in there that you can use to create that differentiation in the marketplace that makes you different from or better than. And we've got a series of videos and some video training that's coming up. You'll have access to those. These are all under 3 minutes, so you can get a boost even when things aren't going perfectly. And I don't know what about you, but when things don't go perfectly, Michael, they don't, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is one of those things that we're moving down a path because this is going to be one of the most phenomenal buying seasons in real estate. But the market has shifted incredibly, and people just want to know what they can do to benefit from this. And our biggest concern is that this market will come and go, and there will be thousands of people who could have sold their houses and moved on to bigger and better homes, or at least better opportunities for themselves, either at a different location or in a different circumstance. And they're going to miss it because they're not in a position, nobody has told them. I had a client this morning who just said he had somebody that he was talking about buying a house, and the guy he still had a 30-year mortgage at 5 3/4%. And he says, where do these people come from? He says, I don't know how, would they hide under a rock? And it's not that. It's, I call it situational awareness. They're just not aware of the situation. So here's what we can do. For those of you who are mortgage professionals and the realtors alike, here's the website that you can see. It's ImproveMyTomorrowCoaching.com. In the next few days, we're going to have the whole bit of information on the coaching on both sides, both Terry's and mine, available. This call will be available in the client side. Any of the information that you need is available to you there, or you can just email me, Michael at ImproveMyTomorrowCoaching.com, and we'll be able to get you any information you want. But keep this website written down and in front of you, and understand that we will be posting the schedule for the Lunch and Learns. It'll have its own tab there. Like I said, by the end of this week, hopefully we'll get that all done, and we'll have these things all written out. Now, normally Terry and I would not have done this call without being 100% prepared. And the challenge that we both have is we're both very busy, and we're both committed to do a lot of things. And the issue was we can't let this market go to waste. There's too much opportunity out there for everybody to succeed, and we didn't want to wait. So rather than ask permission, we were going to seek forgiveness, and that's what I'm asking for you to do. Understand the next few days, the website will be up and running. You can go take a look at Murphy on Real Estate and More United and see, for those of you who are mortgage people and realtors who want to know more about Terry, you can go there and find out everything there is to know. And personally, she's my go-to person when it comes to anything real estate because, let's be honest, she was selling 100 houses a year back when you needed to mortgage your children in order to get in. So to me, there's no better person to help you along this path. And so that's why I want Terry as part of this thing because, to be honest with you, we all have to get better at working together as a team. And I really appreciate, Terry, you taking the time to explore this with me, and I appreciate all of you who are on this call right now taking the time to listen to the presentation.
Well, Michael, I always make it a real priority, number one, to keep it under 45 minutes. So I like the 38-minute format because that gives everybody a chance to eat some lunch and still answer a couple of, emails and whatever. Secondly, I think it's important for you to understand that it's not just the wisdom of Mike and Terry, but because I'm one of the top 5 elite in the country, which is part of a group of 12 super coaches, I get to shop in the market of some of the top producers all over the country. So you're not getting a representation that's just geographically local. You're getting an overview from all over the country. And Mike coaches people from all over the country. So, when you start thinking about it, what are you leaving on the table? Even one transaction is going to change your production at the end of this year. So for what's important for me is that we share, Mike, what we already know, what we're seeing. And you're right, we're crazy busy, but the good news is that if we can share this with enough people, we know that we're going to, raise the professional level of most agents out there and raise the professional level of the mortgage originators. And that unity of a realtor and a loan originator will create a better, get this, experience for that client or customer. Today's customer is not looking about an experienced loan originator or realtor. They're looking for a good real estate experience. And when you understand that, you can deliver a differentiated service model that is going to make a difference. Now, one of the things I always do, Michael, is I ask if anybody has any questions. And if you've got one, you can put it right in the chat room, and we'll pick it up. Or you can just email Michael at improveyourtomorrowscoaching.com. Or you can just email Terry at terrymurphy.com. Whatever works for you. But in the meantime, everybody that's been on the call, Michael, are we going to post the PDF of this PowerPoint?
Yeah, what we're going to do is we will have this done, and it'll be posted on the client side of the Improve My Tomorrow coaching side. There's the mortgage people who are on this call, or the realtors who are on this call that would like a copy who are not existing clients. We'll be happy to get them a copy. All they have to do, again, email me, Michael at ImproveMyTomorrowCoaching.com, or you can email Terry at terrymurphy.com, and we will make sure that we get you a copy of the file. It'll take us a couple days to get it done, but it will be available for everybody to have.
Hey, Michael, thank you so much for taking the time, and thanks everybody an attempt to be with us today. We really appreciate the fact that you have a commitment to making our industry even better. Michael, thanks for your help.
Thank you.